Can you lean into that and talk about that conversation you had with Gary? What that conversation sounded like?
Yeah, so it was at a dinner. He had a pretty clear vision. Hey, I want to build a $500 million independent, integrated, international communications company. You've made 25 years of mistakes that I don't want to make. Help me avoid the potholes and move faster. And then he said to me, can you describe what you do in a single sentence? And I said, yeah, I take dreams and visions and turn them into action plans. And he said, all right, you're hired, because I got a lot of dreams and visions.
If you're looking at what's going on at Twitter, now known X, given what is happening right now, what do you think is going to happen in 2024 with all that?
I'm a big believer of Twitter. I love the platform. I use it often. I still get my news, my real-time stuff. The good news is there's a lot of different platforms. And Gary talks about underpriced attention. Mm-hmm. And we're not married to any one platform. We go to where the underpriced attention is. If Twitter goes away tomorrow or X goes away tomorrow, we're going to find another place where the attention is.
You're listening to...
Welcome to What the Tech, your gateway to business strategies and tech secrets shaping today's workplace. You know what, Dave? What do you think about the fact that today, as a thumbnail artist, you can make upwards of $300K, which is nearly as much as what doctors, if not more, in some parts of the country, as well as corporate leaders.
300,000 salary for creating thumbnails. Well, I guess I would say thumbnails are a very important part of this digital media landscape, but also with the introduction of AI getting better and better every day, is it most important to know how to do the thumbnail, or most important to understand how to create the best prompt within AI to then create the best thumbnail? I don't know. I'm kind of torn on it. I'd say save your money. If you're able to earn and bank some of that cash, save it now. Hate to get replaced by a robot.
We're going to be talking to somebody that's at the forefront when it comes to the media landscape and understanding those trends. And he certainly is one that has a finger on the pulse. I mean, he works with somebody that I would say is probably the smartest guy right now with what's happening in the content creation world, within media, within paid media, advising companies on media strategy and growth. So I'm looking forward to this discussion because sure, he's got 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and 50s, 60s, you know, the whole range that work for his organization that, you know, I'm sure they're not cheap, sure that he's probably aware of this trend as well. You know, Dave, we probably went into the wrong majors in college. You know, I majored in psychology and business. And I remember I used to laugh a little bit at the guys at the liberal arts school that I went to that were art majors, because I was thinking, you know, there aren't a lot of places for art majors to go to. But who has the last laugh now? 300K, man.
Yeah, that's a lot of cash. You know, I'd like to also pick his brain and get his take on just college today. How important is a college degree? If you're able to kind of sit down behind your computer and teach yourself and learn thumbnails, best execution, and demand such a high salary, do you have to go to college to learn that?
I guess you don't. I guess we'll find out. You know, I'm really honored to have James on today. And then, you know what, maybe we should get into his bio so we can bring him on. But before we bring him on, I want to give big props to our last guest, professor and economist, as well as researcher out of Stanford, Nick Bloom. Nick, thanks for coming on. He shared so much on what's going on with the work from home, hybrid, and the facts around how hybrid work and remote work is positively impacting the planet. He shared all kinds of information, where things are going, trends in commercial real estate. And so I want to give big props to Nick. Love to have you on again. Such a wealth of information. So Nick, I'm going to give you some big props. All right, let's do a formal introduction for our guest, Mr. James Orsini. James is the president of the Sasha Group, a VaynerX company. He's a seasoned leader with over 35 years of experience in the finance and operations, as well as marketing and communications industry. He's a key player in the success of VaynerMedia. As you know, VaynerMedia is owned by the very famous Mr. Vaynerchuk, also known as Gary Vee. James played a crucial role in managing the agency for success. He's also the CEO and former board member of Cito Mobile Ltd. James is an accomplished author, having penned business articles such as The Agency of the Future and Let Leaders Lead and practitioners practice. And he's been on over 50 podcasts. Oh my goodness. In such podcasts such as Second in Command and Self-Made. Let me tell you that before joining the Sasha Group, James held significant roles at Saatchi & Saatchi, Interbrand North America, KPMG, and Goldman. His extensive experience includes financial leadership at Saatchi, where he served as CFO of the International Public Relations Division and later the B&B advertising unit. His academic success is unparalleled. Dave, I envy him because he was magna cum laude, graduate from Seton Hall. Man, I wish I could have just even half of what he did there. And James holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and is a licensed New York State certified public accountant. Beyond his professional achievements, he actively contributes to charitable organizations, serving as a board member for Renovation House of Jersey in New York and playing key roles in Seton Hall University initiatives. Let's welcome to the podcast, Mr. James Orsini.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. We are thrilled to have you, James, on today's show. So where are you checking in from today?
I'm actually at my home in Livingston, New Jersey today.
Oh, Jersey guy. Hey, Jersey. I used to live for some time in Brooklyn, on the other side, on the New York side. That was many, many years ago in the 80s. I'm sure you can attest to the changes that have happened since the mid 80s to today in all up and down New York City as well as Brooklyn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my wife was originally from Howard Beach, Queens, so traveled a lot. Yeah, and we have offices in both Manhattan and in Long Island City, so travel throughout New York.
Oh man, and I'm sure that the travel is getting different with people working remotely now. How is I wanted to just jump into this before we get into some of these other questions. How is that work situation, and now that people are wanting to be more hybrid? How are you all treating that within Vayner and Sasha Group?
Well, it's a tight balance, right? Because we understand how we got to where we are. We realize that we've proven to ourselves that work can get done from remote locations. So that was an advancement. But we see what's lost through what Gary likes to call osmosis. I mean, just rubbing shoulders, iron sharpens iron when it rubs up against each other. And, if you're not around to do that, I know we're going to touch on the topic of college and college students, but, when you're in an office, you can have somebody, hey, can you just put an eye on this before I hit send, and somebody will look over and say, it's coming off a little harsh. Maybe just tone that down a bit. Now you don't have that. Everything is unfiltered. It is raw and unfiltered. It comes at you at 100 miles an hour. I don't think I'd want to be a 20 or 30-year-old working from my one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. I don't think it's healthy for professional development.
I was just going to say, we had Nick Bloom on recently, and he was talking really how hybrid is becoming the most popular way. Give employees the dynamic of coming into the office so that they can, work with people, be mentored, etc., but also have some split time at home. But I'm also not a city guy. I am lucky enough to not have a 900 square foot apartment, sharing it with someone else. But yeah, we have had that conversation where if you're a new employee to the workforce, you just graduated last year, you're in your 20s, maybe you did 2 years of schooling virtually, you are missing out if you don't have that ability to rub shoulders, ask someone to kind of peek over your shoulder. But, with some of the technology that's available today, flexible like work areas, I think that there's still, great opportunity for people to have best of both worlds, work at home a couple of days a week and then come on into the office.
Yeah. I mean, look, for me personally, as a 60-year-old guy, I mean, that's working out just fine. You don't realize how taxing some of that commuting is until you stop doing it. And then you're
True.
like, wow. So this is what it's like, right? So, getting up, at 6:10 versus 7:20, being in a car if you drive or a train, commuting in, it's tough. I had the same experience with international travel. I mean, I for 15 years I traveled to 31 offices in 26 countries. So I was flying. Then I stopped flying for a while, and I had to take a Dramamine to go to Florida. So it's it's tough when you stop doing it.
And what do they say? A moving object stays in motion.
Yeah, this is the truth.
Well, let's jump into a straight up business question, James. You worked at financial companies, you've done accounting, you know what it's like when it comes to operations. And I want to ask you about something I just saw recently, which is Zulily. They just announced that they are going to close operations in February. And they were at one time valued at $9 billion. Go ahead, play that sound, Ori.
Shutting their doors for good. The company says they're closing the Seattle headquarters and laying off all 292 employees here. They also posted a going out of business sale on their Instagram today, saying everything must go, but shortly after posting it, that ad disappeared. Now, according to GeekWire, the company has already gone through 2 rounds of layoffs this year. Zulily is also facing 2 lawsuits over unpaid bills. They report that Zulily is also laying off hundreds of workers from warehouses in both Ohio and Nevada. Those layoffs for Seattle will begin February 7th.
Lily, it's not that you need to know what they do, but given that they were almost $9 billion in terms of valuation, and all of a sudden now they're closing their doors. The landscape for e-commerce, which is what they were competing in, is very brutal. When you're talking Amazon, you still got Walmart that's very viable. What does an operation need to look like to lay the groundwork for success, especially when you have incumbents in the industry, given your insights to a vast number of companies that have been around for such a long time?
Yeah, well, seeing companies like that, it's no news, right? You got Bed Bath and Beyond, you got the General Electric. These are all enormous companies that are dwindling or have dwindled down to nothing. And for me, the answer is always in the simple, right? So in some cases, there's a difference between swelling and growing. Both get you big, and one is healthy and one is not. And a lot of companies swell. They don't grow in a healthy format, right? So at the Sasha Group, we've had 5 years of year-over-year growth. We've gone from probably 30 employees in year 1 to 110 now in year 5. We've gone from a little under 10 million in revenue to over 20 plus. But we've never dipped below a double-digit profit margin in any one year.
Wow.
So, it has been healthy, steady growth. Now, one could say that's not explosive growth. You maybe should
But
be
that's
at
what the
50 or
street
100
likes,
million.
You're a Goldman guy, former Goldman. That's what the street loves. They love that hyper growth, right?
I had that problem. I had that problem at Cedo Mobile. There was a publicly traded company that I brought to cash flow break even a year and a half ahead of schedule.
Wow.
And we were profitable. And a new board came in. They said, "Listen, you're running this place like it's General Motors. We want revenue growth, at the expense of profits." And they did. And 18 months after I left, the company was out of business. So, there's a cash burn. I remember back in 2000, okay, when the .com first came out, and I met with a guy from Merrill Lynch. And I showed him this prospectus, and it was a company that said, in the prospectus, we do not make profit. If we do make profit, we do not sustain profit. Like, in other words, they had no business model for profitability. And the stock went from 10 to 120 on day one. And I said to the guy, what are you doing? And he said, James, we're rewarding them for taking up white space. Right now, the internet is white space and the unknown. And if you play in that space, we're going to reward you for that. Now, let's think about how many of those .com companies
have gone.
Remain,
the
right?
names are gone.
Yeah, it's Priceline is still around. A couple, a handful. They're all gone.
That's it. Do you think the rush for hyper growth and to succeed compounds the situation when you're talking about, especially when you're talking about startups that are, if you have visions of going public, your mindset is different than probably some of the companies that you're working with at the Sasha Group.
Do I think that's the case? I wrote an article called Sarbanes Oxymoronic. All right. Because I could not understand how, and as a CEO of a publicly traded company for a period of time, I could not understand. So let me get this straight. I make earnings by a penny and I'm rewarded. I miss earnings by a penny and I'm punished. What's that going to breed? Right? Is that who's more honest? The guy who misses earnings by a penny or the guy who makes every quarter's earnings by a penny?
Right.
It's kind of scary.
There we go. I think, but is this the article, Ori, that James is referencing? There you go.
Yeah,
You wrote this one here
Yeah,
with Warren Buffett. And for those that are not watching and listening to this on audio, here's the article that James wrote regarding that. Thanks, Ori, for pulling that up.
Mm-hmm. That's Ori on the spot.
He is great.
As opposed to Johnny on the spot.
He is Johnny on the spot. Oh man, he is spot on today. But yeah, it's a you lived in Wall Street. I mean, you live in the New York City area, and you've been there working at Goldman. I remember working at Altria Group. It was it used to be called Philip Morris, the parent company. Now it's Altria, and the expectations were different because like you said, General Motors, Altria pays dividends every quarter. Boring. They're not 20 double digit growth, right? 5, 6, 3%. You can expect that, reliable. And I think that it has a lot of merits being around for a while and having a sustainable growth. And that's kind of where I think we want to shift the conversation a little bit and talk about, some of those mistakes, that you see being made when it comes to AI and where the intersection is today with where it's going.
Well, we had a conversation about this yesterday, and we could see, for example, in one of Gary's recent postings, several of the comments were sort of AI generated comments, right? And they kind of come across loud and clear rather than a real person in there. But we also talked about the benefit of using AI from a research perspective and helping us speed up the research process. I was talking with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about the CMO type offerings, chief marketing officer type offerings, and he was able to load up 30 different CMO job specs and pull out the 7 common items that virtually everybody's looking for in their CMO. And then he was able to build a business practice around those 7 items and making sure that he offered that. So, AI, it's still early, but there's going to be benefits, and there's going to be mistakes made in its excess usage.
Sure. And with your exposure right now to AI and with the years of experience that you have you ever considered, this tool would have been really great back in 1995 when I was working on this project? Have you ever thought, this would have been a game changer earlier on in your career?
Look, you're talking to a guy who, when I was at KPMG, we were using ledger paper, 14 column ledger paper to do our accounting. And when I got to Goldman Sachs, there was a cubicle with a computer in it. And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "That's your computer." I said, "Yeah, I don't use computers." And they said, "Well, you'll learn." And they gave me an assignment that should have taken 1 hour. And 11 and a half hours later, and puddles of sweat under my arms, I got through the assignment. So, I may not be the best guy to talk about having that stuff back then, but I would have loved all those tools back then.
You've seen a lot, and you've certainly evolved, and now we're here. I almost said the year. I'm not going to say which year it is. It doesn't quite matter. How would you... I wanted to ask about AI as it relates to kind of early startups or companies that are, maybe they're 5 years in and they're just growing. Are there brands out there or organizations that are just anti-AI? Like, you know what? Not for us. Are you seeing that, or is it kind of
Well,
100% adoption.
look, I don't think it's 100% adoption. I mean, we're an agent of a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and we have master services agreements that say what we can and can't do, and copyright infringements and things like that. So we're exploring, but we're proceeding with caution. We're not just throwing caution to the wind here. But I in my very limited experience, I see it best used as a behind the scenes tool that just doesn't go from the AI generated content to public usage, but needs
Right.
to have a human touch and be massaged a bit. You're talking to a guy who still uses a Mont Blanc pen and writes in a journal when I walk into a meeting. So but I recognize the benefit of it. Another article I wrote is reverse 360 mentoring, and too many of us at my level mentor down and don't accept the mentoring up from the young. Like there's stuff to be learned, man. You gotta don't be a rock, be a sponge, take it back. So that's been my experience over the last 8 years that I've been with Gary. And when I got there were 450 millennials and me, 50-year-old dude. But I had one thing they didn't have. I had wisdom and experience. So,
True.
and I learned from them and I gleaned from them. I developed my own social media presence, probably how you guys found me, and applied this reverse 360 mentoring approach.
What do you say? There's two things in that I want to pull apart because you're talking a little bit about experience, and I've heard Gary say on video before that that's the main reason he brought you in, because he didn't want to make 26 years of mistakes. Can you lean into that and talk about that conversation you had with Gary about, okay, I'm your guy. You want to avoid some of these mistakes. What is that? What that conversation sound?
Yeah, so it was at a dinner, and he said he had a pretty clear vision. Hey, I want to build a $500 million independent, integrated international communications company. I want a Richard Edelman model, is what he said. And Richard Edelman owns one of the largest independent public relations firms. And I said, I'm familiar with the model. I said, I had breakfast with Richard Edelman yesterday. So he said, okay, well, you've made 25 years of mistakes that I don't want to make. Help me avoid the potholes and move faster. And then he said to me, can you describe what you do in a single sentence? And I said, yeah, I take dreams and visions and turn them into action plans. And he said, all right, you're hired, because I got a lot of dreams and visions. So that's kind of how that day played out. But yeah, so when I first got there, remember, I had been in public relations and branding and general market advertising and mobile, right? So the only thing I was really missing was the digital social side of things that I had to learn. But he had a big vision. He wanted to do everything. He knew eventually he wanted to do a Super Bowl commercial, but he knew it 10 years before he did his first one.
Right.
So so we were just sharing from experiences. Have you ever done this? How would you do this? Somebody who does that? That's kind of the consigliere kind of stuff that I brought to the hallways early on. I started out as his chief integration officer because his brother was chief operating officer, and then I became chief operating officer. Then we built some studios in Long Island City. I ran that for a couple of 6 months, and then he wanted to start something new, and I said, "What do you have in mind?" And he said, well, I'm on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. I got 30 million followers, and we built a company to service Fortune 500. I don't have a company for small, medium-sized challenger brand type businesses. I want to start a new company. I want to name it after my dad for legacy purposes, and I want you to run it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years at the Sasha Group.
Wow, what a journey. Going from basically the financial world, going into working in the ad space, with companies like Sasha. And
yeah, that's what everybody always wants to talk. How's an accountant go to running a digital advertising agency? But truth be told, I was an auditor, and one of my clients was a Saatchi subsidiary called Siegel and Gale branding company. And I remember just sitting in the cubicle there in my 3-piece suit and saying, this is a cool environment. Like, I could see myself here someday. And that's how I really got the bug.
It bit you. It bit you. The bug bit you.
Yeah.
And speaking of biting, I heard somewhere from a bird somewhere, because you invoked the word consigliere, and I'm from the New York area. That's a word that also gets thrown around. I heard somewhere that you had a very infamous name at one point during your accounting career. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I still use it as my Twitter handle, Jimmy the Pencil. Jimmy the Pencil is my Twitter handle, my TikTok handle. So, it was a combination of two things. One, because obviously we were using pencils and ledger paper to do stuff with. And two, I used to have a very paper, razor thin Clark Gable type mustache that I would shave down. So the combination of those two made me Jimmy the Pencil.
And I'm going to say this in a very respectful way. There we go. There we have his Jimmy the Pencil handle. For those that are listening on audio, we're featuring James' handle on TikTok. So if you want to follow him, that handle is Jimmy the Pencil, so that you can go ahead and follow him. Yeah, I'm sure you're rubbing elbows with Gary. You pick up a thing or two, right? Like you're saying, you're a sponge, and I'm sure we all. To me, Gary's like the gold standard when it comes to being on social media. I mean, he breaks the mold. He talks
Daily.
about he talks about just being yourself and filming yourself, but it's easier said than done. The greatest people, I heard this a long time ago, the greatest make it look so easy, and that's what he does.
Well, partly because his mantra is document, don't create. So he just has people around filming what he does every day.
Right.
And then using that to be chopped up and edited, and that becomes content. Too many people are looking for perfection, and he preaches volume. The volume model of put out as much content as you possibly can. He talks about the fact that we're all a media company first. You're a media company that happens to sell furniture. You're a media company that happens to be an architect. So if we put on that hat, you will continually produce content.
And we've certainly adopted that. He had helped us kind of come out of our shell years ago. We're a hardware services communications organization. And within our market, there was this hole. There's people that do demos of the products that we sell, right? Bought out of box experiences and live demos and all of that stuff. But really listening to some of Gary, it was, document, don't be afraid to hit record.
Yeah.
Do a lot of it, do it often, posting X amount of days and things like that. Yeah, he's been kind of an inside mentor, but again, I don't think what I appreciate about him is he's giving us he's giving us the information for free, but we have the roadmap. To stay fit, you need to exercise, count your calories, etc.
Yeah.
But it's having that motivation to get out there and to actually apply.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I respect most is that he never asks anybody to do what he wouldn't do himself. So, by the time we're recommending stuff to clients, it's because he's already tested it on himself and proven that it's worked. So,
right.
It's less guesswork for us and more, lean in and do this.
Right.
Can you speak to that? So, I mean, you have, again, probably one of the most, I can't even pick up a right adjective, but somebody who is the epitome of knowing and being connected on social media. How have your clients received that information? Obviously, Gary shares his information. He's got a team of people that are also probably looking at the analytics and the data and the numbers and what's up, what's sideways. How have your clients been able to take that, from an execution perspective? They embrace that and say, "Yep, we're doing it," and they see the results, or they're more like, "Well, we don't know. Gary's unique, and we're going to pump the brakes here."
Yeah, well, we have both sides of the fence. At the Sasha Group, many of our clients are not marketers. They're entrepreneurs, they're founders. So they're a little more willing to hang on every word that we say. Think of it like 1960 Mad Men. At the VaynerMedia level, where you're dealing with Fortune 500 chief marketing officers and what Gary likes to call seasoned senior executives, those people are a little more set in their ways, bringing them around to what recently happened, right? The Black Friday game, football game that was aired on Amazon Prime, which many of the commercials, including a couple of our clients like Bose and Gillette, had QR codes that allowed you to kind of screen and make the purchase. You go right into the Amazon website. You'll be retargeted at a later date. Like that whole content capture process is groundbreaking. It's totally new.
Indeed.
And Gary thinks, man, that could be the Super Bowl of the future. This Black Friday game on Prime. So you got to be open to accept something. We're talking about possibly bringing together some entrepreneurs and some marketers in the same room and having them cross-pollinate each other, right? So the marketers from the entrepreneurs learn about speed and not being afraid to fail and learning more from failures than from success. And by the same token, the entrepreneurs learn from the marketers about scaling your business and how to hire, how to let go and hire support that allows me to do other things. That's the biggest challenge that we found with our entrepreneurs is they're holding the baby so tight they're choking it to death, right? And it's hard for them to hire somebody to allow them to scale. Right?
And that is the challenge, because whether you're scaling media content, whether you're scaling operations, it requires some knowledge, because we've faced this challenge ourselves as an operation. We grew rapidly during COVID because you invoked your client Bose. We sell a product like that. We're in the like Dave said, we're in the communication space and cameras and stuff for businesses, and that grew rapidly. And so we had to really run faster than we ever ran, because clients were those types of products were in high demand. And it's really challenging if all of a sudden you go into hyper growth mode, because you got to sustain it. You got to have the people, you got to have everything in place.
Yeah. Swelling versus growing, right? Keep that the next time you hit that hyper growth button, just keep that in mind. There's a difference between swelling and growing. Both are going to get you big. You're going to be big. One's healthy and one is not.
No, so what are the dangers? So I'm curious, James. So you take a global brand, and it's already year over year growth. Say it's double digits and has been for a very long time. Modest growth, 10 to 20% growth year over year. What is the danger then when a pandemic hits and the demand for that product is through the roof, and now we're looking at 50%, 100% year over year growth for a period of time? Here in this case, call it 2.5 years, it's sales through the roof. So what's the danger of that? Because these CFOs for some of the major brands that are in this particular market, it's all work at home stuff, just accelerated so quickly. What are the dangers when something like that happens?
So let's look at some of the stuff that Gary's done, right? Because he's done a lot of stuff outside of VaynerMedia, right? He's done wines, he's done sneakers. Now he's got these VeeFriends. He loves to pre-sell. So in pre-selling and seeing what the orders are, why produce 1 million products if there's only going to be 10,000 sold? Or why manufacture 10,000 if you could sell 1 million? So the pre-sale notion, books. Think about it. He does it for everything he does. It gives you
attention. He's been talking about that for like months now, and that's his book that's coming out.
Exactly.
He's planted that phrase in the media, in the landscape, in his videos. Now he's got it as a pre-roll. So when it hits, it's not going to be a new concept. He's genius.
Exactly. So that's one method we use. In a simple form, sometimes what I question is you have a very successful restaurant in New York City. People are lined up outside. You open in San Francisco. Why not build a bigger restaurant in New York where the people are lined up outside? Like,
why not?
Give the people what they want. Why Why are you going to go to San Francisco and now have to create a name for yourself off of, the success in New York? So those types of things, I mean, when you're analyzing a business for operational success, that's what you have to look at. Gary always says, hiring is guessing and firing is knowing, right? Hire fast, fire faster. So, that's another approach. A lot of times we don't thin out as fast as we should when we know it's just not on the rails.
No doubt. And when it comes to operational success and meeting the challenges of today, I wanted to jump into something that I'm sure you have a real good insight on. The landscape. You talked about Amazon Prime. We sell products on Amazon, and we see the landscape changing where there's a convergence of e-commerce and media, or social media to be specific, where um, the TikToks of the world have changed not just the social media landscape, but are actually changing the business side. What are
Mhm.
your clients telling you when you're talking to them? You see, like you said, Amazon Prime, and how that's a game changer, and being able to retarget specifically and bringing that whole thing back into e-commerce, and then you bring in TikTok, which is pushing, probing, moving things in a different direction than it
Mhm.
has before.
We've had success with a lot of our brick and mortar clients at the Sasha Group, and coaching them to find a D2C, a direct to consumer type e-commerce solution as well. We like to say it's an and, not an and or. Do both, right?
Hmm.
We're so convinced that D2C is the right solution for so many of our clients that at the Sasha Group, we actually have a variable comp, a skin in the game type stuff where we'll lower our media placement fees and take a piece of the upside based on success.
Wow, I love
So,
that.
we've done that for several of our clients, and I have to admit, I don't think there's a quarter that we haven't hit a bonus goal on any client because we're so convinced about that. You know, um, so I think that's what you have to look at. Now, truth be told, I uh, um, just questioned why go to retail recently. Just this week, I was doing some shopping for something, and it was a kind of unique product. And I went to two different stores looking for it. Drove traffic out, here in Jersey, and a half hour to get to one, 20 minutes to get to the next. And then in the parking lot at my car, I typed it into a Google search, and it clicked on Amazon. Hey, James, for $6, this will be at your house tomorrow. So there is a part of me that questions, you know, why go anywhere? Just stay home, have everything on your doorstep, right? Have everything delivered
Convenience.
on your doorstep. So the convenience is a big factor. But the social aspect, the touching of product. I'm still a guy who likes to try on my shoes before buying them. So for me, there's still certain purchases that I want to make. Um, but I could see where things change. I find buying a new car a grueling process. The same
Amazon's
process
going to
that it's
start selling
been.
cars next year.
I saw that Hyundai is going to be the
Right,
first on
right.
there. So
It's always the
it's one of our
beginning, right?
clients.
It's the first step.
Yeah.
Eventually it's going to, they're going to see the success. The other guys and gals are holding back to, holding their breath to hopefully it doesn't work out for Hyundai, and then they
Yeah.
crash and burn. But if it works out, right, they'll all be trying to do the same thing. And what I want you to do now, giving the wealth of knowledge that you have, I want you to take a look at your crystal ball. If we're talking about 2024 now, because you're talking about change, you're talking about things that are
Mm.
coming down the line. Dave and I are going to ask you about a couple topics, and I want you to look into that crystal ball and tell us what you predict could happen. All right. We're not going to hold your feet to the fire. It's just a little fun
Appreciate that.
exercise here. If you're looking at what's going on at Twitter, now known as X, advertisers leaving, do you think that's a sustainable model given what is happening right now? What do you think is going to happen in 2024 with all that?
Look, I'm a big believer of Twitter. I love the platform. I use it often. Threads kind of, for me, kind of came and went. It was an attempt. Everybody got on it really quick, but I still get my news, my real time stuff. I saw last night Andrew Bauer, passed away, 61-year-old actor. I saw that on Twitter, and the funny part was 2 days before I had breakfast with his attorney who represents him and a few other actors and actors.
World.
So I was quick to just screenshot the X post and text the guy, the attorney that I had breakfast with, like, hey, I'm sorry for your loss. It was like real time, instant, boom. So, the good news is there's a lot of different platforms, right? And Gary talks about underpriced attention.
Mhm.
And we're not married to any one platform. We go to where the underpriced attention is. And if Twitter goes away tomorrow or X goes away tomorrow, we're going to find another place where the attention is. So we're just not, emotionally moved by the platforms. Everyone has a particular usage for us, and our clients use a plethora landscape because it depends on where their audience or what we like to say cohort, where their cohort resides. Some of them are on Twitter, some of them are on Instagram Reels, some of them are on Facebook. It's our job to find them and message them properly where they are.
Do you think the shift in advertising on X or on the Twitter platform, do you think the shift of advertising will allow the current advertisers' competition to move in there? And if so, do you think that will help shift the market towards that competitor?
Look, for me, it's additive. I remember being down at Saatchi, and they were like, James, my God, the internet's out. Nobody's ever going to watch television again. You're out of business. I'm like, yeah, I'm still doing 700 million in television commercials, so I'm not too worried about that. So think about it, right? When the radio came out, it didn't do away with newspapers. When television came out, it didn't do away with radio. When the internet came out, it didn't do away with television. So it's like I said, that's an and. You should be doing both. A funny example. A year or two back, we were in a conference room, and Gary said something about billboards, and I said, "Oh, Gary, I thought we were anti-billboard." And he goes, no. He goes, we were anti-billboard when it was $10,000. The billboard's now $500. Buy the whole block.
Right.
So
That's a great deal.
Yeah. So it's the underpriced attention.
And where, so let me ask you about that, because where you all really have way more insight into those platforms and attention versus value. Is there a particular platform? I know you say you're not married, but is there a platform right now where you think is undervalued and under attentioned, if I could use that word?
Well, we like the fact that you can still get, really good organic reach on both TikTok and LinkedIn, without having to put paid media dollars behind it. We're working hard to lean into that for our clients in something that we call SOC, strategic organic creative. So, working hard to put create, and then putting some media behind it when we see people interacting with the organic content, right? Because now we really see it's been shared. People are commenting on it. There's a lot of likes. Like, people are engaging with this piece of content. Now let's put some paid media dollars behind it and see where it goes.
I love that, and Gary has said a lot about that with regard to leaning into LinkedIn and Reels and TikTok, and then using your best organic to run ads against that. What I would love if I was just putting something in the suggestion box. I love what Gary gives these nuggets. I would love to see, and maybe you guys do this as Sasha Group, because it would also help us out too when we do our social media with our media team. Is this, like a little process type stuff. Like, this is how the sausage is made. Because he gives away the nuggets, and he gives do a carousel.
He's done that on numerous occasions. I mean, he's published the Gary Vee deck, and in how to produce content. It's like 63 slides. I mean, you just put it out there. he gives away his best stuff for free. That's who he is. You know what I mean? Um, so we have that out there, all the time, in virtual how-tos, in how-to videos and things like that. So he's not afraid to share that. And if you guys don't have access to it, I'll make sure that
I would love it. I would love that. I love the process, the sausage, because that's where you know, again, he makes it look easy.
Yeah.
The scaling. How do you scale?
But let's talk about that sausage for a second, right?
Yeah.
Because, we have a product called Mentors in the Sasha Group where we help companies. The ideal company is doing probably 10 million in revenue, been around for at least 5 years and has plateaued or gotten stuck, can't grow any further, right? And again, that's another one of these models where we take a piece of the upside over the next 3 years if we help them unlock. And Gary asked me once on actually on one of his podcast interviews, how come it works for some clients and not others? Like, well, why is it some of them are writing us a really big check because we help them break through and others not? And I said, Gary, because they're not following your recipes. The one that break through followed your recipe to the T. The other ones, maybe left out a little salt, maybe left out a little pepper. It's still going to taste the same, but it's not your recipe.
Right.
So, my caution to you is when I send you this 65-page deck on how to produce, if you leave out slides 20 to 40, you're not going to get the impact the way he intended.
Wow.
Right. So just a word of caution. It is a recipe. It's it's a prescription that he works very hard to perfect, and he has an army of people in Team Gary that help perfect that and hone it daily. I mean, it's kind of wild. You
can't stay at the top of this game unless you have a well-oiled machine. You have a good team of players. There's no way Michael Jordan could have ever won championships without Scottie Pippen and the rest.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we could go on and on with analogies that there's no one man, one woman that could just make everything
I'll tell you, I walk by that office, I feel like I'm working in Pfizer. It's like a freaking lab. You know what I mean? People testing and looking at stuff and machines going, and it's wild what he's created there. He calls it the Death Star.
I love it. Let me give you one of them. I absolutely love it. James, I know we don't have enough of your time today. I know, and maybe Gary Vee's on the other line saying, "Get back to work. We need you at the helm of the ship, steering things." But before we go, is there anything that you want to leave us with? Any thoughts? Any ideas? Crystal ball? Otherwise, what do you want to leave us with? Anything? You have the floor.
Yeah, I think if I left you with one thing, it's that we're all a media company first. So, don't be afraid to post content. Don't look for perfection. Just kind of get it out there and share, as you guys have been doing very, very well around the document and rather than creating. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. There's more to be learned from the mistakes sometimes than from successes. So just be open. Just be open to it.
Well said.
Well said. We have been having a wonderful discussion with Jimmy the Pencil, aka James Orsini of the Sasha Group. I would say right-hand man, self-professed consigliere. And advisor. I would like you leaning into your mentor. I'm sure in some ways you mentor Gary with your wealth of experience. And we've had a wonderful conversation about operations. And if you want to nerd out on more content like this about how to scale, how to use your operations efficiently, Dave and I had a whole episode around this on our podcast. Go ahead to circuitloops.com and check out those episodes where we talk about the state of remote work as well as operational excellence. Dave and I will see you in that episode. And for those that are on YouTube, I've got a video right here, right up here, where Dave and I will help you grow your business faster so you can help yourself to growing faster as well as avoid those types of mistakes that our guest James was talking about. Dave and I will see you next time.